G'day everyone, Turbo Tristan here. In today's video, we are back working on project VTEG, and I've gone ahead and made a downpipe and a screamer pipe. There's a couple of things I've got to do before I put the engine in the car. One is install the bung for the O2 sensor or the wideband, depending on which one we run. Haven't decided yet, but I've got both. But let's take a look at what I've done so far. Now, I haven't picked up the TIG for almost a year. The last time was in January when I made my Civic exhaust. I've been MIGging everything just because it's been really easy to do and quick, and it hasn't been that crucial or, you know, fancy that I've needed to TIG anything. But we've got the 3-inch dump pipe flows around here and then down under the car. I am really happy with. I fabbed it out here because it was nice and easy to get to, because I knew I'd have to pull it on and off a few times. I've got enough room to have a pipe come out of here for the intercooler, so I'm pretty happy with the space and everything here. And my favorite part is the screamer. Check this out. There's the bottom of the exhaust. Sits a couple of millimeters lower than the sump, and then right under here is the screamer. And that was my first time doing a teardrop, and I think you will agree I nailed it. Teardrop just kicks off straight down under there, so I am really chuffed with that. I've got one of the lines made here for the water feed, and then the return it's going to go around to this hose here. I think I need 2 more fittings for that. The main thing for me is I want to get everything in the car now, because we're at that stage where I've done all I can with the engine here on the stand. I need to put the flywheel on and the gearbox on and get it in the car and stop procrastinating. I've got the flywheel machined. It's over here. Pretty much looks exactly the same as it did in the last video. It's just shinier. So I probably could have done without doing that, but just for argument's sake and for safety's sake, I did get it machined to make sure it is perfectly smooth. It's time to weld on the O2 bung. A couple of trains of thought on where I was going to put this. First one was sort of off here, but then I would have to put the O2 sensor here. Then we'd have a wire which is running up and around these belts. It's going to be very visible here, going around the engine bay, and the strut tower is going to be there. So I thought, nah, it's going to look ugly and it's going to be really close to all of the heat, and I don't want to damage the sensor at all. The whole exhaust is going to be hot, but the closer you have it to the turbo and the closer you have it to the manifold and everything, the more chance it's going to have a lot of heat issues. Ideally, the best spot would be to put it somewhere around here, within about 1 foot or 30 centimeters away from the back of the exhaust. But I want to like move it a little bit further and have it come up just here in front of the engine. There's plenty of space. It's going to stand up about that tall, and then we can just run the wire up here, which is where the factory wire went, and then we'll tuck that around behind. You won't see it. It's not going to be near any spinny things. It's going to be protected by everything here and up and over around the gearbox. So there's going to be plenty of space for that. If needs be, we can extend the wiring, but I don't think we'll need to. So I've just put a little dot down here. Might move that forward just a pinch so that I've got plenty of clearance here when you do want to take it off. And I'll pull that off, drill it out, get it welded up, and then it's engine up on the bench once I clean it all off. This episode, we're going to get the engine in the car. So for the first time in months, the engine is off the engine stand. It is now empty and we've got it on the table. Now it's time to fit up the freshly machined flywheel and clutch, and then put the gearbox on and then get it in the car. I hope that I've got enough strength to steady this and torque down all the flywheel bolts and everything, get it all together without knocking it off the table and totally destroying this engine. Flywheel's on, torque to spec. That was 76 foot-pounds, if you must know. And I've just marked it all off. Everything's done. I've used plenty of Loctite. I'm using the purple Loctite because we do want it to come off again. The reason why you use Loctite isn't so it locks on and it never comes undone. Well, it is, but the Loctite fills up the air space between the thread and the bolt. And when there's no air, and everything's locked in with a liquid, it won't rust and seize up together, and it won't have air gaps to vibrate and rattle loose. So that's why you use Loctite. There are the blue Loctites and some other ones that make it basically impossible to get off, and it never comes off the bolt. I found that out with my VL. They put a little dab about the size of like a 5mm circle, and they put one dab on one side of a bolt, and every time it went round it was like jammed and then was free and then jammed and then free and then jammed and free. It was such a pain, but it was designed to never come out. That's why you use the different types of Loctite. Anyway, enough of the school lesson. It's time to fit up the clutch. And the clutch that we are using, which is Naoki's choice, is a competition clutch, stage 4 crackle tune clutch. This one should be able to take all of the power, and it's a really, really good clutch. I do have one of these in my K-Swap Civic, and it seems to be doing the job just fine, and I know plenty of guys that use these. So that's what we're running on this particular engine. Let's take a look. So we've got all the, ooh, whoo-hoo, we've got some, yep, they're going on. So we've got some coloured valve caps, as well as all the info. We've got a new bearing. There was nothing wrong with this one, so I've just used that. That's just a locator bearing, so I'm not going to change that out. We've got a brand new throw-out bearing, which is for the clutch fork, and this is the plate here. A puck clutch or a button clutch. Really, really nice. And the pressure plate. So it's nothing too exciting to look at. It's not pretty colors or anything, but we're going to stick that on now, torque that to spec. I'm going to use the same purple Loctite on these bolts. They're a 10mm, and they are to be torqued to 19 foot-pound, 19 or 20 foot-pound. We're going to get those on, clicked up, and I can do that myself just by holding the pry bar in there. Hone Developments actually make a little thing that bolts on and locks in there with the teeth, and it works on B, I think D and K series. So I'm going to get myself one of those for future because I can use it on all the builds. Pretty awesome. Didn't have it now and I didn't think ahead, but Grant, I'm going to hit you up and I'm going to go buy myself one of those because that is awesome to keep in the toolbox. Doesn't take up much space and it's a really, really good idea. Honed, again, are the guys that made us this, which is the pressure sensor spacer and or the turbo feed line spacer here. So enough jibber jabber, let's get it on, and I'll show you before I stick the gearbox on so you can see its shininess. Thanks again to Elusive Racing for all this sort of stuff. If you want to get it off the shelf, in stock, in Australia, without having to wait for shipping, hit up Kenny, Raf, Andy, and the gang, and tell them I sent you. Competition clutch is on. Woo-hoo. And I've marked everything off. It's been torqued to spec 19 foot-pounds, which is basically just breathing on it. And this is nice and centered. Just throws in really easily. So now it's time to change out this bearing with the fresh one and get it on there. And then that's ready to slam in the car. Cannot wait. It's going to look awesome. I can finish everything up, and it's one more thing off my benches, off my stands, and one step closer to a Turbo Integra. Through the magic of editing in YouTube, it's now 2 days later. The motor is in. It didn't take me 2 days. I got it in the same night as I filmed the last stuff. But here it is in all its glory. B18C2 turbo forged engine is in, and I'm just starting to button up quite a few things now. So wiring loom's in, everything's plugged in. I've got to decide whether we're keeping the battery there or whether we move the battery to the boot. I won't know until I've finished the intercooler piping, which is going to go down here and up into there. What sort of space I have around this area. If I have some room here, don't forget I've got to put a radiator that's got to go here, and I've got to get an air intake somewhere. And a filter on there, so I'm not sure how that's going to go. Plus there's going to be a top radiator hose here that's going to go in the road there. This pipe's going to come up here. It's going to be a lot going on. So it would make sense to move the battery and give me all of that room up there. I did also need to relocate the fuel pressure reg. It's still attached. I've got to undo it at the other end, shorten the hose, move this. If we run the battery in the boot, I can mount this over here somewhere right next to the catch can. I can probably put it on the same bracket, something like that. Haven't decided yet, but it was mounted just here and there wasn't enough room or clearance between the TPS and the firewall. So I've moved that, and I had to move the bracket which was on there, and I've got to get another bracket that's going to go in here so I can run the throttle cable this way. Previously it pulled from that side and yanked this way, but now we're yanking it this way. The next issue is the intercooler pipe. So we're going to be running a half rad, which hopefully that stops here somewhere, halfway and over to there, because we need the space to run a 90 out of here, come around the wastegate and then go down to that 180 pipe down there and clear the boost controller, which I've got the part for that now, and I can probably move this over square so that there's space for that. And then it's on to the exhaust. So I'm going to put the car up in the air because tonight I'm working on the cat back. I'm going to get this up and I'm going to show you what it looks like. And I pretty much nailed the placement of the downpipe. So check this out. Here it is up in the air. So we're just going to go over a couple of things before I get stuck into making the exhaust. If we look level with the bumper here, you can see the exhaust doesn't hang down any lower than that. So that's good so far. In the middle where it sort of dips up, you can see it. So if we go level there, it's coming out just a little bit. And then straight under here, we've got the O2 bung. There's plenty of space for that to go here, as much room as we need, and then run the cord or the plug back up that way. And this guy right in the center, and it's a straight shot all the way down here. Now we've got to go turn, up and over and out the back. You know how the exhaust goes. Here we are right in the center, and then it's just straight down, boom, to that guy. So that should be nice and easy for the first half of the exhaust. We'll put in the, so here we're going to put a little space, then there'll be a flex joint, then there'll be a cat just here. Then we're going to go straight down past the gear shifter, and then I'm going to put the hot dog barrel right here, and that's going to help out with any droning or anything like that. We're going to move the muffling back behind the driver so everything goes past the driver. Where you get all the droning and stuff is right where the mufflers are. So if you put a muffler at the front, it's going to buzz and vibrate and drone in the front. So we're going to put the mufflers all at the back. We're going to run 2 mufflers, both 3-inch, both straight through. But check out, this is the piece de resistance. This is my favorite part. It's the first time I've ever made one of these teardrops. It looks absolutely amazing. I am so proud of that. All tigged up, perfectly flat, comes out exactly at the bottom of the exhaust. The reason why I didn't run it straight back this way is because I wanted something just to fill that little circle there, and I think the flow of that fills this just perfectly. We've got the RACEWORKS turbo beanie on there, which you can see. I still have yet to make up one more line, but I got some more fittings today for that. So I'm gonna get those done soon. But more importantly, I wanna get the exhaust knocked out. It's gonna be a lot of mucking around. So I'm gonna get that done, and we'll show you everything once I get progress shots happening, and then I'll come back and I'll show you what it looks like in the different stages. We're gonna put a couple of V-band clamps in there. V-bands are awesome because they're easy to undo, and so bolt on and bolt off. The other thing is the flanges don't have to line up exactly perfect because everything's 360 flanging. So when you put the exhaust on, you can actually twist it and bend it up or down however you want it in the car. So your welding and your angles don't have to be 100%. They can be 97% and everything's still going to be sweet. So little bit of a hack there. Use V-band clamps. Makes life very easy for you and bolting it on and off. All right, so it's the next day. I got most of the exhaust knocked out, as you can see here. I'm just grinding back some welds because I ran out of gas. I've got a new bottle now, and I didn't realize at the time. I was just like, why did my welds with the MIG start out okay and then get worse and worse and worse? I ran out of gas between doing this one and these last two, and you can see here it's totally stuffed. So a grinder and paint make you the welder you ain't. So I'm going to grind these down, just fill in where I missed with the MIG, slap that on the car. Then this section is done completely, and then I've got to figure out how I'm going to make this work in the back here. And then we are one step closer to getting this thing running. It's about 3 days later since I last picked up the camera. I've been to the elusive end of month meet. I've been to an Evo and Rexmas WRX track day with Zach Boldy, and we took his car out on track. I was passenger. Man, that guy can drive. Absolutely killed it. He was in a DC4 Integra with a good set of semi-slicks, some PROTEX brakes, and some MAXPEEDINGRODS coilovers. And let me tell you, we went through a lot of those corners faster than I've ever been through any corners ever at that track at Sandown. Not so fast on the straights, topping out. I saw about 160, 170, but I think Zach managed to get a better time once we stripped the car out and he went back out on his own. So a little bit less weight. I'm like close to 100 kilos. So yeah, I helped out by jumping out of the car. We might do a video on that. We might do some stuff on that later on. The exhaust is done. We've got the 3-inch downpipe, as you've seen already, comes down and around. We've got the screamer pipe with the very sexy teardrop tip. I'm most proud of that. Now, all the front section here is all TIG welded by me by hand with my TIG welder. Yeah, it's like riding a bike. Not too bad. They're not the best. I'm not a professional. I'm self-taught, but it's all done. And we've got the spot here for the wideband, which will sit up there and give us plenty of space, and it's not going to interfere with anything here. So this is all done to a V-band. From here, I've booger MIG'd. So I've used the MIG welder, which is just point and spray, and I've done V-band to flex joint to high flow 200 cell cat, all the way through to a 3-inch hot dog resonator. That one is 3 inches by 19 inches long, through to a 90, 45, 45, straight through to a 45, another 45, a little bit of a kink, and then to a 3-inch muffler. Now, we recycled this one. This is off the original Ronda exhaust that we made, and I've pushed it back so it's not going to foul on anything here. I've tried as hard as I can to get as much clearance there. There is a hand space above there, and there's hand gap around all of that. I did put the stand underneath here and push the wheel up as high as I could. It actually started to lift the car off the hoist, which means it was under full compression and full weight. So hopefully when it's on the ground, it doesn't make any more difference, and there's still enough gap and clearance here. So I used a MIG on that. It was pretty quick, point and shoot and squirt. You didn't have to clean things up. Things didn't have to be perfectly matched. You could sort of get away with it. And then I used the TIG here on the back just for the nice shiny stainless pipe, and I just went with a straight one out from the bumper. So we're not going to melt anything here, and I ground this out a bit more so there's a bit of extra clearance. But yeah, that'll all be awesome. And if you give it a good shake, it doesn't knock on anything. Same if you bang it up, it doesn't knock on anything. You can see there's the fuel tank, and we are barely hanging below that at all. And same goes from the side skirt. So if you look directly from the side level, there's almost no exhaust hanging under the car, which is exactly what you want. It does drop a little bit just there, but I needed to give myself extra clearance around. There's a couple of brackets here that I wanted to clear. I reckon I nailed it, and it's nice and center. There's plenty of gap. There's a whole hand space in between the linkages and the exhaust as well. And just on the exhaust, I want to give a huge shout out to EXO Exhausts. We'll put their logo down here. Building custom 3-inch exhausts isn't as cheap as people think. If there's an off-the-shelf item that's already made, I recommend you get that. If not, if it's something custom like a turbo kit, or you want to build a race car and you want to make your own exhaust, then hit up EXO Exhaust. They make the expensive part, which is actually buying the materials, a bit more affordable for you guys playing along at home. You don't have to TIG it. You can use a MIG. You can get mild steel and stainless steel. So they're local here in Victoria, in Melbourne. I get all my steel and parts from EXO Exhaust, and there's their logo just there. They make excellent mufflers. This is by far the best sounding muffler that we had on Ronda, and we often talk how good it used to sound when we had this on there. So we might get another one and put on Ronda and swap out that oval muffler that we have on there, because these did a fantastic job. And yeah, recycling. It's really good steel, TIGs up nice, it's nice and clean. Don't buy low quality stainless if you are going to attempt TIGging, or you do want to teach yourself to TIG, because it's very frustrating if you get some dirty Chinesium is what some people refer to it as. Yeah, it's still stainless steel, but it's just not quite as clean and pure. And if you are welding that, it does blow up and turn all dirty colors, and yeah, it's not good. It goes all sugary and reacts with your tungsten and your gas and all that stuff. So make sure you get some good quality stuff. I always use EXO Exhaust, which I find to be the best and fantastic service. The guys there are amazing, so shout out to Nick. But yeah, EXO Exhaust, link will be in the description. Couldn't be happier with the way this turned out, so thanks again, EXO Exhaust. Stopping us from moving forward is we don't have a radiator. I'm hoping that the half-size radiator tucks in there and then goes across to just before this intercooler pipe here. That'll give me plenty of room to put a nice bend here around everything, and then straight down to this pipe, through the intercooler, out this side, up, and then we'll custom fab some piping up there once we get everything else in, and try and make sure that there's room to go around an air filter or an air intake. But I'll drop it down, I'll show you what it looks like from the top. Super happy with how everything's come out now, and we're on the home stretch. There's not a lot to do from this point on. That is going to do it for this video. If you've made it this far and you've watched it all the way through, comment EXO for EXO Exhaust and let me know that you've watched the whole video. If you're loving this content, don't forget to subscribe, spool up, bring the boost, and we'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching. Cheers.